Welcome to the Area Podcast from the Ames Regional Economic Alliance. I'm your host, Eric Smith. On today's episode, we are joined by Elli Jennings of RE/MAX Real Estate. With a social media following in the tens of thousands, she has built a trusted brand by celebrating community, sharing authentically, and using digital platforms to connect with people in meaningful ways. This episode is presented by Flynn Wright, Iowa's premier full-service advertising agency, serving clients from coast to coast for over 40 years. Experts in crafting stories that sell, Flynn Wright prides itself on helping brands drive performance and stay one step ahead. Elli Jennings, thank you for being on this episode of the Area Podcast. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so honored to be invited.
This has got to be a busy time of year for you. Today the sun is out, the rain is through from yesterday, and it's this is go time for you, right?
It is. I always say being a real estate agent in Central Iowa is kind of like being an accountant. You've got your seasons, and you've got to, I've been saying lately, make hay when the sun shines.
I believe that.
It's seasonal, totally.
Yeah, So part of the RE/MAX Real Estate team, and then locally the Jennings Real Estate team here. Tell me what's going on with you and this year. I've been following you for quite a long time, and I told you prior to this that I've been blown away and super impressed by your social media presence.
Thanks.
And so I just wanted to have you come on so that we can unpack some of that.
Yeah.
When I look at statistics, I work in social media, and so I'm looking at some of these statistics on Instagram. You have 19,000 followers, TikTok, double that, but it's ongoing for you, and you have such an incredible presence. How do you do it all?
Well, thanks. Social media and establishing a brand on social platforms it's another full-time job. It's not, I wish it was just like every day I can be pushing out content and going forward that way, but it's taken a lot of time and consistency to develop a brand and get a feel for, okay, what people that are watching the things I put out, what are they drawn to, and how does it relate to growing my business and providing value to clients, and how do I do it? Obviously as a real estate agent, I joke, it's kind of like working in corporate, but in all the departments.
Right.
You're in finance, you're helping facilitate, human resources, showings, paperwork. There's everything. And then the marketing side with the way the digital world has developed, and so much of marketing now is on our phones, on social media platforms, and a lot of it's video. Yeah, you've got to be able to do everything. So thankfully, it started years ago, developing my brand. When I was younger, newer into the industry, I had more time to be putting out content and to be growing my business. Thankfully, now I'm at a point where I'm so glad I did the work early on and had the confidence to put myself out there, which took a lot, and development, of course, with that confidence, that now I feel like I'm, what's the phrase? I'm being rewarded, I guess you could say.
Sure.
And so it's as I get more into it with clients and I'm actually out in the field showing properties at my clients' homes, it gets to be a little bit more difficult to personally be the one putting out the content, but I can prioritize what things, I need to be doing. My main focus now is to be marketing my listings, which I have so much fun with. It takes a lot of strategizing, a lot of consistency, and I have fun with it, which makes the most, like I said, marketing and the social media content making is so fun for me. And, like any industry, you have highs and lows, and, you have hard times and good times, but the marketing side of my job is so natural and fun for me.
Yeah. So I'm going to unpack actually a number of things that you brought up there, but maybe before we do that, let's back up a bit, because I want to talk about how you got into real estate. Now, you grew up in it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that is where you were going to end up. So talk me a little bit through that. I know, you started in college, just kind of by default, but I just want you to talk a little bit about when you knew like this was the path that you're going to take? Because
Sure.
again, it wasn't a given
Mm-mm.
necessarily. I mean, you could do any number of things, and
Thanks.
yet you went this way.
So real estate, I did grow up in the industry.
Yeah.
My folks are real estate agents themselves. My dad was licensed before I was even born. So the industry, real estate, was just honestly, it was second nature to me. Looking back, I'm like, I don't even know that I fully recognized what my parents did until I was maybe in late high school. It's just, I was always tagging along to showings. It just was a part of my life, right? And it was never something where like my folks, Bill and Tracy Jennings, they never were like, Ellie, you need to get your license. It was never like, this is what you're going to do. You're going to take over the family business. My parents have grown their business with time as well. And so going into college, I knew I wanted to go to Iowa State, and I didn't decide my major until maybe a month prior to coming
Yeah.
into my freshman year. And I chose ag business because I grew up on a farm just west of Story City. So my family farms in addition to residential real estate. And so I was like, I know the lingo. I feel like I fit in with those kind of people, but I also know I have the personality to be in sales. And so I was like, I think ag business would be a really good fit for me. And I knew it was a great major at Iowa State. And so that's what I went into. I ended up meeting my husband a month into college. He was also in ag business, and then we ended up both going in different routes, which is just like, were we drawn to it?
Yes.
If you believe in fate, I don't know. But anyway, ag business, that was the intention, but paying for school was on us kids. And so I'd worked at Remax Real Estate Center, the brokerage my folks own, in and out in college or in high school. We always had jobs, even in high school. And so I recognized with all the relationships I had of agents that were actively selling, there was a need for what we'd call a showing agent. Agents in our office were having kids, they were, and real estate's not 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. We work evenings, we work weekends. You have to be available for your clients. But what do you do when you do have a baby or you do go on vacation? You got to have someone covering. So I was like, okay, I see this need for a showing agent who could just be available to the active agents to show property. Again, no intention to be an actively selling agent. I just wanted to make money to pay for school. I was already going to Iowa State. My folks owned a brokerage in town. I was like, this is a win-win. So I got my license at the age of 18, right after high school. I spent all summer taking the classes, the courses. I was shadowing a lot of agents just to get a feel for everything. And then by freshman year, I was kind of the call gal. Like you could call me and I would show a property for you and you'd pay me hourly or by house. And by the time summer after freshman year rolled around, I was hosting open houses for agents. And an agent, I was like, okay, I'm starting to have people come through these open houses unrepresented by agents. Do you want me to give them your card? How do you want me to handle this? And very seldom do you have the luck of meeting a potential client at an open house. It's very seldom, but that's always the goal, like you might meet a client and establish a relationship. Well, it just so happened that I hosted 2 open houses one weekend right after my freshman year, and the listing agent was like, Ellie, why don't you just take them? And I'm like, I didn't really go into this looking to represent clients, but it's summer, why not?
Yeah.
And I ended up, call it beginner's luck. I had 2 sets of clients walk through. First-time home buyers, kind of that perfect fit. Did not have agents, and I was like, let's try it. And I ended up working with both sets of clients, ended up selling them properties that year, and I realized I think I'm really good at this. I think I could have a career in this industry. I've got the best of the best at my fingertips to learn from. And I've done this my whole life. I already know the lingo. And so it snowballed from there. And by the time I was a junior in college, I was working full-time representing clients. And which is so funny because if you can imagine trusting a 19-year-old girl.
Actually, that's a good point.
To sell you a house.
Yeah.
It took a lot of maturity, growing up, confidence to be able to be like, I know I look young, but trust me, I can help you.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot from that. I sometimes joke that in college I lived maybe a little bit of a double life, because I totally had a normal college experience, but I was also by junior year working full time.
Yeah.
So it taught me a lot, and I'm so glad that I started it that way. And when I did, because by the time I graduated, I was fully ready to take this full time and this to be my career. It just kind of happened the way it did. Like I said, with no intention of this being the plan, I switched to marketing as my degree just because I was struggling to keep up with ag business is such a well-rounded major at Iowa State. Just there's everything. I wish I could have stuck with that major. There were such great people, to be honest. I really loved it. It's just marketing came a little bit more natural for me, which allowed me to work full time.
Well, it's funny how, you comment growing up in this business, and it's really interesting how in many ways, kids who grow up in families that they have, I call them their lifestyles. I mean, they're
Sure.
lifestyle jobs. I mean,
Yeah.
and as you mentioned, it's weekends, it's nights,
Yeah.
it's just, this is what we do. How much kids pick up being around their parents with those types of jobs. And, and you didn't
Yeah.
even know it, but like
No,
just the
it's second
maturity,
nature.
just being around adults all the time
Oh,
and being
yeah.
able to level up. And so like,
Yeah.
by the time you're 18, 19,
I knew how to talk to
it's
people.
not hard.
No.
Right.
No.
I can see that. I feel like my kids are in that with
Sure,
what
they
my
see
wife
you
and I do.
interacting
Right.
in such great, I don't know, regardless of what kind of industry you go
Right.
into, people skills it's such an important skill set, and I say as a real estate agent, you can be introverted, you can be extroverted, but you have to be able to read a room and know how to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And that's a huge trait of being a real estate agent.
Correct. So you grew up with social media. I mean,
Yeah.
and a generation prior to you, it was just kicking off. It wasn't the same
Yeah.
way, but it's always been around for you.
Yeah.
But when did you start leveraging it professionally?
Well, it's funny, 2020, when TikTok
Oh, yes.
kind of came out,
Yep.
at first, this platform to me was very foreign, as it was to many people.
Right.
And when it did first come out, I know my brother, who was at the time in middle school, and his friends were all using it. And so I thought it was just this platform that, middle school age kids were using to like be silly, right? And once 2020 COVID quarantine came around, I think a lot of us had a little bit more time on our hands being stuck at home. And I've always had kind of a knack for creativity and putting things together. And I was like, okay, I'll try it out. And one thing led to another. I started to kind of get a feel for how the algorithm worked. And it took a lot of confidence for me to be like, I'm going to put myself out here on social media. I was in college. I was PR for my sorority. I ran our social media platform for the sorority. I've had experience in that regard. But I was like, this is my full-time job now. And I didn't want to be like every real estate agent out there. And I think I'll be honest, like sense of pride. I wanted to be able to build my business and say I did that on my own.
Yeah.
Coming from a family dynamic, us kids, we always had to work for our own thing. But I wanted people to be able to look at my business and be like, no, she did everything. She did that for herself.
Yeah.
That was important to me. And I was like, how can I set myself apart from every other agent out there? Social media. Nobody else is doing it this way. So I started putting myself out there. A lot of it came from TikTok. And I totally took advantage of the fact that this is a brand new platform. And I'd say it's still a new platform. So for anybody that's considering getting out there and marketing their business or themselves on social media, it is not too late. But I definitely used that to my advantage, and I was pushing out content every single day. It became just like you'd time block something, or, real estate agents, however they get their business, whether it's cold calling or, door knocking or however, open houses. For me, it was, no, I'm going to go all in with social media marketing. I'm going to set time aside to make content.
Yeah.
And I had a full-on plan, like a calendar of here's what I'm going to make today, and I'm going to push it out. Looking back, some of these videos are so cringy.
Oh, I know. I mean, like not yours, but I understand
wouldn't
the process.
Be embarrassed if you said it because
Yeah, no.
they're cringy. But it worked, and I was super consistent with it.
Yeah.
And it took a lot for me to be like the confidence of just kind of getting over yourself, being like, nobody cares. I think a big hurdle for me was, oh, this is so cringy. What will people think? You see or hear yourself on video.
Yeah.
And I think the first reaction for most people is like, ew, or they're just embarrassed.
Oh.
And I think a lot of it for me was not only what will people maybe from, high school or college think of me, but what will my peers in the industry think of me? And I was quite embarrassed by it at first. And then the more consistent I was, the more I just put myself out there, it just was like, I don't care. I don't care. And now at this point, it's just like, my friends always joke, yeah, Elli would literally record a video in front of thousands of people, like just naturally. It's just, the more consistent you are, you develop a sense of confidence. And all of that led to me, I doubled my business after pushing myself out there on social media, and it's only continued to grow from there. And I've, developed different skill sets, and I've honed in on different, ideas and pieces of content. But
what was the response to those initial ones? Because, and so I'm paraphrasing what you just said. You're like, I'm going to try this. I'm going to go for it. It doesn't feel natural to me yet, but let's give it a shot. I think I'm capable. I'm a little self-conscious of it, which I completely understand.
And I think a lot of people would say, I still, sometimes have a little bit of that, but.
Yeah. But what was that initial, what was the feedback that you got, maybe from people in the industry or outside of the industry, or maybe you saw it grow your business a certain way? Because clearly it was paying off so much so that you're going to double down then on it.
Well, it's funny because when you put yourself out there on social media, you're opening yourself up for the entire world to see your content.
Correct.
Now, I can tell you, looking at my my logistics or whatever it's called, most of my viewership is local here in Iowa. But what started off is I was really highlighting living in Iowa and the lifestyle here. I developed I noticed a common denominator. I'm like, okay, yes, I can push out real estate content, but I'm trying to get people to buy and sell homes to live in Iowa. And I've grown up here. I've loved my life here. I don't plan to leave. So I am going to really showcase the true style and show people that, no, we're not just cornfields and, yeehaw farmers. There's actually so much to do here. And that's what I started developing into a brand. And so I noticed people started commenting why would anyone live in Iowa? Or just negative comments about it. And I used it to my advantage.
How so?
So I'll never forget one of the first videos that went viral was a property tour of a home my clients had just purchased in Huxley. And the comment section was hilarious. People just being like, why would I? But then I'd have to live in Iowa, blah, 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 blah. And so I never deleted comments. Even if they were targeted towards me, I always used it to my advantage. And I'd kind of make a joke out of it. And it slowly turned into I had one person call me corn girl. And so I'm like, okay, how can I make this a joke? And so I bought a corn costume on Amazon and I strutted around Ames. I was grocery shopping at Fairway. I was roller skating down the street in my corn costume. And I just kind of, took advantage and capitalized on the fact that they were trying to make fun of me. And I'm like, okay, call me corn girl. I think it's great here. And I'm going to show you why do people love living here? And so, coupling that with real estate content, I kind of gave people, the stat is that people only buy or sell every 7 years. And so if you're not looking to buy and sell, do people truly care? You have outliers, people who, refresh Zillow, they've lived in their home for 30 years, but they just find it fascinating, right? So maybe they pay attention. But I recognized that I needed to give people something that was valuable and entertaining beyond just real estate content. So I was trying to push out multiple different avenues, from entertaining to educational content to marketing my listings and things like that. And I feel like I've done a really good job providing kind of an array of content.
So it's really smart because it's storytelling. They know that you can help them buy a home. Just like if you go to a car dealership, you can buy a car there. Yeah. But it's building this trust.
100%.
And you're not just selling the home, you're selling the region. You're selling the community. Mm-hmm. You're selling how they can invest their time and energy or raise kids or retire here.
Totally.
Or that's what you're selling. And the home is sort of the
product.
Right, mm-hmm. Yeah, but you're selling so much more than just that.
There's so many layers in marketing. And that's why I've always been fascinated by marketing. And not only selling the area, the lifestyle, but I'm also selling myself in a way, like my character. I feel like, when it comes time to working with a real estate professional, I would argue the number one trait that a client is looking for is somebody that they trust. It's a big investment. For most people, it's the biggest investment they'll make, whether it's buying or selling. And you want to trust the person that you're working with. And so what I realized is by putting myself out there, and you'll see I share tidbits of my personal life as well.
Yeah.
I don't have a business page and a personal page. It's all one. Like, you get all of me. And
it's your lifestyle.
It is.
This is.
Yeah. And again, a part of that's like, I know I love living in Iowa. I'm going to, kind of spill some of that into this. But I've had so many people tell me that, like, when we first meet, whether it's, for a first consultation or even out in public, people will be like, I feel like I already know you. And I feel like it's such a compliment because it's an icebreaker. By putting myself out there, people get a feel for who I am. And I truly am myself online. And, if somebody, and I'll, totally acknowledge I may not be the right fit for everybody. Yeah. We might not have similar personalities, or some people might just not feel like we'd be a fit. 100%. I'm cool with that. And, but by putting myself out there on social media, when I do meet those clients, it's almost like that layer of trying to build trust has already been established and makes my job so much easier. And then I know that the client wants to work with me. It's a reciprocal thing. I want to work with them as much as they want to work. Like, I want it to be mutual. And so it just makes my life a little bit more enjoyable. So
do you plan things out on a weekly basis? And I've gone through, your social media. Mm-hmm. Of course, you're going to have the home listings part of it. Like,
Top
that
priority.
is a staple of your content. And then we also talked about you have lifestyle content as well. Are you mapping this out by week? Is it impromptu? How does that work?
I'll be super candid with you. It was, so mapped out a couple years ago when I had the ability to be like, I'm going all in on this 100%. But now that I'm out and about, I'm driving in the day, I've got appointments from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. at night, maybe later. I'll be honest, it's been more and more difficult to keep up with pushing out new content. My top priority at this point is marketing my listings. And so when I have the ability to do the fun extra stuff, I absolutely do. Like tomorrow, I'm going to go visit a local business and I'm going to put together what I can. And it's always very natural. I don't take payment for videos, anything like that, because it's got to feel true to and I only support local businesses.
You're good for it.
Thanks.
No, but I mean, like, that's kind of what you're saying. I mean, you're like, I'm here to support the entire community.
Yep, totally.
And on a certain level, of course, you want it to help your business as well, to help people buy homes. Like, of course, but at the same time, you can do both. It's not one or the other.
And I probably need a business coach thinking about this, but I wish I had more time to develop that kind of content, because what I've noticed is the people that do follow me, they do love that kind of content. But I'm a perfectionist. But when it comes time to like a brand and it comes time to the social media content that I'm putting out, again, it's a personality. And so it's hard for me to give it to somebody else, hire it out, and expect it to be the same as what I would put out. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm sure there's a solution out there. And I'd love to I wish there were two of me to be able to continue the level of content I had been putting out. But it's like a dream come true that the work I put in a couple years ago, now I have this, clientele that trusts me, and the business still comes in, and I'm so grateful for it. I absolutely enjoy making content, so I wish I had more time.
It's pretty incredible to be able to celebrate community. I mean, I am fortunate. Honestly, I feel very fortunate to have that role with what we do here at the Alliance, because we are always celebrating what other people are doing as well. And of course, we want that in turn to make our business and our company successful as well. But it's just incredibly fun to honestly have these conversations and, with our publication, to celebrate business and the things that are happening in community.
People are so surprised when they realize how how much there is to do, especially, in central Iowa, and how much opportunity there is here, especially for people that maybe aren't from the area. When they see the kind of, I'm showcasing, here are the fun things to do, the beautiful places, the cool businesses, places to go. I think a lot of people are surprised. I'm not. I mean, I grew up in it. I've always known that there's a great lifestyle here in Iowa, but people are definitely surprised. And that's one thing I would say social media is great for, and what I've loved to be able to capitalize on is showing people the cool opportunities, especially here in Ames. Yeah, it's super fun highlighting those businesses, and they always have so much gratitude for it. I never, honestly, it's a lot of me coming in and being like, hey, can I put together a video to showcase your business, to showcase this cool place? And then the exposure that it'll get online and then the business it brings in that is so rewarding for me.
This episode of the Area Podcast is sponsored by...
You have a story to tell. That story has a job to do, to be seen, to be heard, to sell, to find inspiration and insight, to use persuasion to change behavior, to turn strategy into tactics, tactics into action, to sell. Nobody does that better than Flynn Wright.
It all started with the mulch colorant that made our name. And now, Color Biotics manufactures millions of pounds of product month after month, bringing brilliance and resilience all around the world. And as we look ahead, all we see is growth. A growing customer base and growing sales mean a growing team. From the lab to the field, backyards to ball fields, and beyond. We need vivid imagination, intense passion, and brilliant ideas. If that sounds like you, we have one question. Are you ready to get to work? ColorBiotics.com/careers.
So over the past several years, with your elevation, increased presence, of course people are going to be paying attention. Have you seen a shift in your industry where they're modeling some of the stuff that you're doing now, or have other companies, they're like, oh, we need to double down on this as well?
I think social media is a business tool, and if you're not using it in your business, I'd encourage anybody to learn more about it. And if it's something that you're maybe not drawn to, I totally respect people that stay off of social media. Yep. Amazing. Sometimes I wish I could. But if you're running a business, it's almost a non-negotiable these days. I tell, from my standpoint, when I'm marketing my listings, I tell my seller clients putting a sign in your yard is the bare minimum. Getting professional photos these days is the bare minimum. My goal is to expose your listing to as many people as I possibly can. For putting it on the MLS, yes, it's going to reach, agents who will share it to their prospective buyers who are actively looking. Amazing. But I also want to expose your property to people who might not have started the process yet, maybe weren't even considering moving, but they see this incredible property that was just listed for sale or something that really piques their interest, and they send it to their loved one. Hey, did you see this property? And it's a video on Instagram or TikTok, and then they reach out to schedule a showing. And I know it sounds silly, and with time, I think more and more people that'll become the norm. But we have sold so many of our listings through the social media marketing that we do, videos. People follow me, obviously, because they know I'm a real estate agent. They expect us to be putting out new listings. And so whether you're in real estate or any business, the world is just becoming more and more visual. There's a stat that the human attention span is less than a goldfish. Like when you're scrolling through social media, you only have so much attention, videos. And so visual draws it captivates us a lot faster than a newspaper article, I think things like that. And so video is the future. Social media is the future of marketing. And so any business that you're in, if you're not utilizing it as a business tool, yes, it's a social platform, and there are, it's fun to be able to socialize with people, especially if they're not in your area. It's a great way to keep in touch, but it's also a business tool. And if you're not already utilizing it to your advantage, you absolutely should consider it.
Well, I've told people here on our team, it's a utility at this point.
Yeah.
It's not a question of whether we use it. It's just
How.
we have to use it.
Yeah.
And again, right, how. And we have a variety of content, and some of it, we can map out, and some of it, it's right here, right now. We capture something, we write something, we hit send, and so it's this range of thinking ahead while also having the capacity to respond in real time.
Yeah.
But what people don't realize, and I do try to share this with people, not as I'm working so hard, but social media it takes a lot of time and effort.
Absolutely.
I mean, to do it at a high quality level,
Yes.
which you are.
Yeah, and marketing, like I said before, has so many layers, and it takes so much deep thought to think ahead about what is the consumer of this content going to get from this content.
Yeah.
And I think too many people, they spend all this time and energy into the content, but they don't think about why. Why am I putting out this content? And I, in college, actually read a book called The Art of Storytelling, and thinking of, as a consumer or a purchaser or whatever, they are the hero, right? Like, they're the hero of this storyline. You are here. As a real estate agent, I am here to be, the guide, essentially. And that book was super fascinating for me to read, and it taught me a lot. But when putting out content, it's not just about the views. It's not just about, how many people see it, but what are people taking away? And so before even putting something together, before I put a listing video together, what is the end goal here? And so it goes into branding, and they all tie together. There's so many layers. I think some people think marketing is kind of this frilly, cutesy, side of business, but
It
takes a lot of intelligence and strategy and creativity. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a full-time job.
Are you mapping out some of these more advanced posts? I mean, because you have some where, there's aerial shots,
Yeah.
there's quick transitions, there's graphics associated with it. How quick can you turn some of that around?
So some of my content is self-made and very, casual. I think TikTok, the algorithm of TikTok is maybe a little bit more casual. It's kind of like you're FaceTiming a friend. People appreciate that. Instagram, maybe a bit more curated. So my team, we invest a lot of time, energy, money, resources into our marketing. It's something I feel like puts our team top notch and kind of sets us apart. It's something we believe in. So some of the content is self-produced. Some of it I work with a videographer. Something I am very proud of, though, is the fact that I'm usually the one producing those. I kind of call them, every one of our listings get like a music video in a say that's super curated and well thought out. And like I said, I've always kind of had this knack for creativity. And anytime I know I have a new listing coming up, if I'm driving or I'm in the shower, I'm constantly thinking, okay, how could I make this eye-catching? How can I hook people in to watch this video and be like, did you see that home?
Is that a skill set that it is a skill set that I would imagine that you've honed over many years,
Yeah.
but is it a part of your job now that you kind of like, because you can kind of hunker down and really focus?
I do think I have a natural ability to be like, that's a great idea. That would be so good, which I'm grateful for. And I think I definitely use that asset to my ability. But it's something that's become so natural. I'm constantly thinking, I'm very motivated by or inspired by music. I'll hear a song, whether it's in a workout class or on a TV show. I'm like, that song would be perfect. Like in the kitchen yesterday, my husband was cooking and he was playing a song, and I was like, that song is exactly what I need for my next video. Like that would work perfectly. And then just kind of figuring out how can How can I create a hook at the beginning of this video to get people captivated? Again, with the goal of, someone scheduling a showing and buying the property.
You can't shut it off.
No, at this point, it's just, and maybe it's just like a genetic makeup, it just comes natural
Yeah.
to me. But yeah, when you do start to get more, at this point, yeah, it's a non-negotiable.
Right.
If you're marketing listings, it's one way to set yourself apart and do the job for your client.
Correct.
So yeah, it's constant thought of top of mind.
So it's a bit of a parallel, but then I'll kind of bring it back to this conversation. When I've been part of the evolution of social media a little bit longer than you, so on the cusp of it, everyone with the iPhone and access where they can hit send, everyone was a photographer.
Yeah.
And it kind of put who were traditional photographers, and I think there was this fear at the time where they were out of business. And now I've seen a resurgence that because everyone has a voice and everyone's a photographer, that if you're a really good photographer, that's how you stand out again. But I feel like there's a parallel to this where everyone could make, essentially with their phone and some tools, they could make a house listing graphic or video.
Oh, yeah.
But to do it well
Right.
requires this extra attention and skill set.
It sounds silly, but it takes a level of swag, in my opinion, to know the kind of video that will perform well, that people will watch all the way through. From the personality of the agent to the overall vibe of the video. And that's something sometimes I'll put out videos that are like, okay, not everyone's going to get this, but who is my target demographic? I put out a listing video not too long ago. It was Drake's newest song. And it's kind of vulgar. It's kind of like, okay, what would my grandma think? She would have no idea what's going on. But I know the demographic of the person that's likely going to buy this home, and they're going to get it. And that's kind of the teeter-totter of marketing and taking risks is some people are going to be like, what the heck did I just watch? But the people that get it will get it, and that's the goal. And so it takes a level of, like I said, creativity, swag, and confidence is what I'll say. People can read your confidence through a phone screen. And if you're timid or the more you put out content and get comfortable in front of the camera, the more natural it's going to feel. And I promise you, the better your content will perform. It takes working on yourself and just getting over that insecurity. I think that's the baseline, to be honest.
Do you look at metrics a lot?
I do, not a ton.
Yeah.
Because if I put a video out, I'm like, it's out. You can't really go back and change it. But I definitely use it to my advantage when I'm in a listing appointment, that's for sure. Hey, look at
the good stuff.
Yeah, hey, this video, like one of my favorite stories is I had a property where the buyers that ended up purchasing the home, we were at the final walkthrough. They requested my clients to be present, the sellers. So I was present as well. We finish up final walkthrough. We're congregated around the kitchen island. And the buyers go, we weren't even really looking to buy a property like this, but our son saw your video and sent it to us. So we knew we had to schedule a showing with our agent, and they brought a full price offer that weekend. And so I use that story all the time, and it's happened time and time again where somebody saw a video on social media, and I'll be like, yeah, look at the views that these get. It outperforms Zillow, outperforms, any other platform out there. Like this social media marketing is the future of selling real estate, really.
I'm going to read something that you wrote. It was to a question. It was online, but I'm going to preface by saying that I appreciate that you think about brand. I think about brand all the time, how it reflects your organization and individuals. But I found this to be very interesting. So you say, well, I know you don't even know what I'm going to say. When I think about my brand, I want it to feel like a luxury hotel. Mm-hmm. And you go on and talk about how every email and conversation should reflect that. Yeah. But you also bring your big sister energy, and you want to be honest and give straightforward feedback. And now I'm paraphrasing towards the end, because they're not hiring you to sell a house. You're guiding them through the biggest decision of their life, and that is buying a home. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I just found it to be really rewarding, and I appreciate that you think about this because
Totally.
you know what vibe you want to give
yeah.
out. And this vibe, it's not manufactured. Like it is you, but you're harnessing you in all the right ways to put yourself out there.
Yeah. It came from, I love to travel. It's a huge motivation to work as hard as I do. And I enjoy staying at a nice hotel every now and then. And several years ago, I was emailing concierge and they responded back every single time, our pleasure, our pleasure. And I'm like, imagine if your real estate agent was like, it's my pleasure to work for you. And, you go to a luxury hotel and every detail is thought out and they treat you like royalty, whether you are or not. And so that's why I was like, okay, I want to treat my clients that way. Imagine if I brought that kind of branding into this. But not only that, I think sometimes in real estate, it's like a lot of my clients, and this is not a derogatory term by any means, but a lot of my clients want their hands to be held, and I'm happy to do so. But there's also a level of being honest with your client and cutting it to them straight, not beating around the bush.
Yeah.
Which is where kind of that like big sister energy comes in. With my siblings, I'm very protective. I'm very I love to give them advice and set a good example. And if they come to me and they need a question, I will tell them straight. I'm not going to beat around the bush. And so that's how I handle clients too. Like, hey, I'm going to hold your hand and I'm going to give you all the advice I possibly can, but I'm also going to be 100% honest with you because I think that's incredibly important in buying and selling. Maybe it's not always the advice you want to hear. Having to tell a client like, hey, I smell pet in your home. We need to handle this.
Yeah.
And sometimes delivering bad news is not fun, right? Telling a client, hey, the buyer wants to walk away from this transaction. I think some people can, out of just pure anxiety, hold on to that news for a while. Oh my gosh, how am I going to tell this client? No, call them right away, give them the news, and then have a solution and then handle it, hey, you're my top priority today and we're going to get through this. There's a level of customer service there, but I truly believe in, not only providing top-notch service and having systems in place within my business, but there's definitely a genuine relationship there. And I want them to know like, hey, you can trust me and I'm going to give it to you straight. And that comes from, I think, a little bit of being a big sister.
Listen, I appreciate it. I think about communication all the time, and there's nothing more frustrating with going into something that you're unfamiliar with and not knowing how to handle it, and you're not getting the answers. And so, buying a home, very few people, they do it a couple times in their lifetime.
Yeah.
You've done it hundreds of times, this process. And so I appreciate the just cutting right through it because people are busy.
Totally. Yeah. And which is why, I'm huge on setting expectations. Any client I work with, I will not show you a property. I will not list your house until we do a thorough buyer or seller consultation, which can last hours. I'd rather sit with a buyer for 2 hours and run them through, hey, this is what you can expect. This is, the craziness of what can happen so that, a common thing I say, actually, it's the first thing I say meeting with any buyer client is I tell them the real estate industry is not Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. I always say a house could come for sale 4 p.m. on Friday and be sold by Saturday at 10 a.m. Yeah. So imagine this property comes for sale. We're in it. We're on top of it. And I tell you, 30 minutes into the showing, I've been texted by the agent that they already have offers and we need to have one in within an hour. Can you imagine if you hadn't been sat down with your agent to know, hey, what does a purchase agreement even look like? Yeah. What are my options in terms of, home inspection? How am I protected here, XYZ? What are the timelines? And then all of a sudden it's all just thrown on you within an hour. I wish we could time it. And, in an ideal world, we'd look at multiple properties. We'd find one or two that you love, bring in, loved ones to come give their opinion. You sit on it, you pray on it, if that's what you do, and then we make an educated decision. Not to say that that doesn't happen every now and then, but there's no...
Not in today's market.
No, there's no law, code, industry standard that, homes can only be shown these days and offers has to be on the market for X amount of time before a seller can respond. It is the wild, wild west out there. Yeah. And so you have to be prepared, which is why I require us to sit down. I want to set the expectation that, at the end of the day, a property is worth what someone's willing to pay. And even if, you're bringing in what we feel is a competitive offer, somebody else out there could pull XYZ these are the options. Not saying you have to do this or you have to offer this, but somebody else out there could. And so we just need to be prepared. Like, this is what can happen. Expectations are everything in this
Because when you
industry.
say it's time to go, you really mean it's
Yep.
time to go. We
Yeah.
got to act. We got to
Yeah,
make
a lot of
decisions.
times.
And
that's not for everybody. You know, some people are like, Ellie, if it's going to go that quickly, then we'll pass. Totally respect that.
yeah, right. That's straightforward back to you.
Yeah, yeah. But I sometimes joke, you know, house hunting can kind of feel like shopping for a wedding dress. Some people, I bought the first dress I tried on.
Yeah.
But for some people, you know, they've got to try on 50 plus. And it's totally different for every client, which is why it kind of comes back to people skills. As an agent, you have to know, read the room. How is this person going to feel confident moving forward? And how can I support them in providing guidance?
So you've talked about the role of social media, you know, moving forward. It is the future.
Yeah.
Do you find it tough to stay on top of trends or or even like the act of making content? Like, there's always new apps out there for your phone. There's new software that you can use.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and lie and be like, oh yeah, I'm always on top of it. I'm always, you know, kind of an early adapter. No, it is constant work, and it's constant like reminding myself, hey, I got to keep up with the current latest trends. I've got to continue to learn. You know, in an industry, you've got to continue to develop and learn the new systems, platforms. How do I grow my business to be next level for my clients? Yeah, it's a lot sometimes, you know, and especially when you are out there doing the actual work, working with clients and representing people. It's a lot, but it's worth it. You know, you don't continue to grow your business if that's what you're looking to do by remaining stagnant. You have to continue to develop and learn.
Are TikTok and Instagram your two biggest?
Oh yeah, for me,
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah.
You know, you have to prioritize, and I could totally put all my eggs in multiple baskets: LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. I don't even have X, Twitter. My husband does, but I don't. Instagram, you know, all of the different platforms. But I've recognized, okay, I'm really good at TikTok and Instagram. I'm familiar with them. I've got a good thing going, and I'm going to stay consistent. Which is why, again, maybe I need a business coach to help me, you know, diversify myself. But for now, I'm got a good thing going.
But at this point, some of those platforms, I always have a wait and see on new platforms, because I feel like the big ones have sort of elevated themselves to a certain following where like these are where people are spending the majority of their time. There's about a dozen or 24 other platforms that I've sort of heard of, but I don't put time into.
Well, I mean, I think people probably saw TikTok that at the beginning. You know, what the heck is this platform? And
That's
the people
true.
who took advantage of it really early on I'm sure they're pretty darn. I mean, I'm super darn proud of the fact that I did. You know, so yeah, it's always a game of poker.
Yeah.
You know, what do you put your time and energy into, and will it pay out?
For every TikTok, there always seems to be probably about a dozen that will never probably get to the point of being in that top 5 or so.
And hey, I'm not saying like every video I put out there goes viral. Like sometimes I'll maybe get a few hundred views. That's just kind of how the algorithm works. But it's the consistency thing and branding, you know, and it takes a good a marketing mind to know what is a brand, what is consistent here, and how do I capitalize on what's performing well that coincides with my brand.
So one of the biggest tips that I've always offered people, and it's not a craft tip so much, but if you want to dive into anything creative, but in this case, social media for any business who really isn't doing it at a high level, it's go in and screw it up. I mean,
Totally.
like, because you can't, because one of the biggest things that benefits that you can have for your business is doing it consistently, having the dedicated time, and then being that source for information. I think you're a source for information for all of your followers, but it's because it's high quality, but it's also consistent. It's not every once in a while when it's convenient.
Sometimes I feel like it's like that, but I appreciate
but
that.
It's not. It's not. And I feel that's one of our strongest suits for our organization as well, is that we are very consistent on sharing information. And as a result, people look to us more.
Yes, and they expect it from you. They know what to expect. I think for anybody that's not utilizing social media, they're like, where the heck do I start?
Yeah.
My
Just
dad,
start, though.
Just start, but like find some motivation. And
Yeah.
I'm not going to say literally copy and paste somebody's work.
Yeah.
Content is an art. I feel a lot of pride in the kind of content that I put out. But I would also say if somebody wants, if you find someone that's doing well and it's growing their business, pay attention and I'm not saying copy and paste, but pay attention to
Be
what they're doing.
inspired
Be
by it.
inspired
Yep.
and do something similar. Like start there, and then you'll get a better feel for how to grow your own personal brand. And I promise you, with consistency, the rest will follow.
I agree. But then you can't end. I always think about this, starting a new project. This podcast, for example, it's not about launching it. It's about setting it up for success, but then maintaining it for the future, And I think
you're not going to get 1,000 views on your first podcast.
Nope.
There's, going to be marketing that goes into getting it out there, but with consistency and, the way we can reach people on, through social media today, it'll grow. It'll continue to grow.
Yeah.
One person at a time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. So what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned? And I'll actually go both ways, professionally and personally, over your path, say, in the last 5 years.
Oh, my goodness. I would say professionally, people... It's a really good question. Be genuine and honest with your clients. In a professional setting, I hear the term commission breath in my industry a lot, people that are just after the sale. And it speaks a lot when your client can tell that you genuinely care about their situation and their particular goal. And the people that have the genuine intent in any industry that they're in, whether it's, clothing making, like we were talking at the beginning, instead of just being like, oh, this piece of clothing is going to do XYZ for you, being honest and transparent about, hey, I just want you to feel good at the end of this. But being genuine and honest with your clients will continue to pay out. And even if it's, hey, this isn't the right time to buy. Like, I've meet with clients all the time and I'm like, hey, guys, I don't think I would sell your home. The honesty there is going to come back to you, whether, it's if you're religious or you believe in karma, whatever it is. I truly believe in like, you'll be rewarded for your honest and genuine behavior. And that's something that I've witnessed in my own parents. And I'm super blessed to have been able to watch is those two. I mean, they're incredibly hardworking, but they're also the most honest, genuine people at the same time when it comes time to working with their clients. And I've learned that I will continue to replicate that example, hopefully when I have my own kids someday. If you're honest and you truly care about the client, the rest will follow.
Well said.
Thank
so
you.
in the last week, do you have a professional win? Just in the last week.
In the last week, oh my goodness, the last week's gone really fast. I would say within the, here's what I'll say. I mentioned at the beginning, in our industry here in Central Iowa, our work is pretty seasonal. A lot of our work, it happens this time of year. And so with that come a lot of late nights, working a lot of weekends. And I got really good advice from my dad a couple of weeks ago. And I was kind of, talking shop, venting about how like, all right, I am exhausted. Like, when am I going to it's so beautiful outside. When am I going to get a day to myself? And I'm like, I'm kind of getting like emotional, almost like with how much I've been working. I just need a day. And he said to me, what a great problem to have. He was like, you know what? Because you're so busy now, the day you do get off is going to mean so much more to you. And it's going to mean that you're going to be so much more grateful. And then I heard another podcast the other day that said something along the lines of, you can't live an extraordinary life without extraordinary work. And I think for a lot of people, in any industry, it's, you have times where, holy smoke, the workload is a lot right now, and I'm just putting in a lot of extra effort. And, my reminder is when I do get that day or weekend off, it's going to mean so much more to me. So that was, I wouldn't say it was my own personal win, but hearing that was like super reassuring and motivating for me. So I hope a lot of people can hear it.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's incredible. That's really good. I'm going to unpack that, I think,
Yeah.
to myself here a little bit. Well, Elli Jennings, thank you for being on this episode of the Area Podcast. I kind of feel reinvigorated after this conversation. No, I mean, seriously.
Oh, wow, that means a lot.
Let's
Holy smokes.
Yeah, I mean, let's change the community here. I mean, like, we have a
Yeah.
lot to celebrate, and I feel like
yeah.
we talked about a lot of those things.
Totally.
So for those listening, if you like this podcast, we would love it if you shared it and talked to others about it. This is the Area Podcast from the Ames Regional Economic Alliance, personal stories, professional journeys.